You are listening to I Am Refocused Radio with your host, Shamaya Reed. This show is designed to inspire you to live your purpose and regain your focus. And now, here's your host, Shamaya Reed.
Hey, welcome to I Am Refocused Radio. We are here once again, and today, man, we are going to talk to amazing music artists. We're going to talk to Chris Koehn, and we're going to talk about his latest music, and we're going to also talk about his life story. And without further ado, man, Chris, I just want to welcome to your show and say, how you doing today, man?
Fine, thank you. Thanks for the invite, Shamaya. I'm really happy to be here.
Yes, sir, man. I mean, you're doing big things. You got, music for films. You're doing a recent project that you released not too long ago that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about your playlist on Spotify and how people can find you and find all the good stuff you're doing. But before we dive into that, man, let's tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Well, I started making music about 10 years ago. Started writing a song from my brother when he passed away. I was making at the time that song for a movie. A friend who was also a good friend of my brother's asked me to make this song I wrote for him for the movie. And that's the first time I got into a studio. And I'm an architect as a main profession. I have my design firm. Mm-hmm. And at that time I went to the studio. It was very overwhelming for me. It was like magic. I felt magic on the studio. So that's when I decided to make music on a professional level. And I started writing different songs. And so until now, this is my fourth EP. I released my first one titled Songs for Yoshimi. And the second one is called Permanent Impermanence. And the third album is a down-tempo cover project with Cleopatra Records in LA. Has songs from Leonard Koehn, Marvin Gaye, and so on. And right now I'm releasing a live from home EP. I did a concert at home, a charity concert to gather funds for single moms affected by COVID. And it was really nice to see all the people donating. And right now I'm releasing a couple of more singles of that album. And right now I'm working on a new album, which is turning really, really nice with lots of different collaborations.
And speaking of that one project that you're talking about, Live from Home, that you made a music video that people can see. They can watch the visuals on that on your YouTube, and that was about 4 weeks ago when you released that. Speaking of that, with all that's been going on, a lot of creatives like yourself have been still occupied in the studio, pushing your creativity and putting out projects. What was it like for you personally? Going through all the stuff that we all have gone through with the pandemic, what was it like for you during the times when things started to shut down?
Well, it was tough in a way that on my design firm, well, all the projects I built stopped completely, abruptly. But musically, it was very nice because since I do both professions, I normally don't have that much time for making music, and my process is a little bit slower. But last year it was like, okay, let's step on the gas, and I started writing a lot of songs, and the creativity it was a very flowing state. So lots of songs came out, and particularly this video you were mentioning, it was a really interesting challenge. Normally I play with a couple of a band, like 4 percussions, perhaps a cello and another guitar. And for this particular concert, it was a really interesting challenge to learn to play by myself all the instruments. So it took me about 3 months daily rehearsals to set up these live looping, playing drums, guitars, singing harmonica simultaneously. but it was a really grateful experience, and for me it was a challenge, like to take my music level as a performer to another level by rehearsing and doing all this stuff by myself.
And you got some really exciting things that you've been a part of, like the Netflix. There's Control Z soundtrack, that your song Winters of Sleep. And tell us about that, man. What was that process like? How did all that come about?
That was really nice because the director of that series of Control C is a good friend of mine, and he's a huge fan of my music. So he asked me if he could use one of my songs, particularly Winters of Sleep, for the main chapter. That, like, the main character on the series is listening to Winters of Sleep on her headphones. And it was really nice because I always thought of my music kind of targeted to people of my age and my kind of taste. In particular, this Netflix series, it was more of a teenager target. And lots of teenagers started writing on my Instagram and YouTube channels, like, where are the lyrics? This song is amazing. It reminds me of Slowdive and this shoegaze music. And so it was, for me, it was really nice to see that my music has also like a bigger audience than I thought. I've never thought of listening to my music like growing. So it was a really, really nice experience. And after that, I started writing a lot of new songs and also seeing that my music has this kind of healing power, which is my main interest, so people, when listen to my music, feel better about themselves. Lyrics are always about consciousness, being aware of staying in the present, like a constant reminder of death, not in a morbid way, but in a more of a zen way, that the only thing for sure we have in life is death. And the more we practice it, like the freer we'll be and the happier we'll be. I think everybody in this earth has different interests: architecture, music, economics, whatever your profession is or your hobbies are. But I think we all want to be happy. So that's the main thing in common. And my music is always aiming to this remind, not as a happy music, because it's a kind of a melancholic music, but as a reminder to that happiness is like a state of flow.
And once again, been listening to I Am Refocused Radio, talking to music artist Chris Koehn and also architect. And speaking of that, let's get the backstory of that. Was that something that you was always passionate about? How did that spark in your life?
Architecture, you mean?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Since I was probably in elementary school, I really was fond of buildings and architecture. And probably in high school, I knew that I wanted to study architecture. And so that's my profession. That's where I got my degree. And it's very interesting because as I've grown, I've seen a lot of relationships between architecture and music. They all work with this like four dimension. On architecture, it would be the space, and in music also you have like a virtual space that surrounds you with the music and the textures. For example, on an architecture, like a wooden texture or a stone or a glass can change your behavior and your mood. As in music, the texture of a guitar passing through a heat bulb amp, or the modulation in architecture versus rhythm in music. Or, for example, one of my favorite architects, Mies van der Rohe, speaks of space, of the void, of the non-space, a clean space. And the analogy between music would be Brian Eno's work on silence. So they have a lot of thing in common. And in my case, the designs I make and as well as the music I make, they both have this intention to make people feel better.
And earlier in the interview, you mentioned Marvin Gaye. And I can't help but to ask you a little bit about Motown. How has him as an artist and that sound, that amazing sound from the Motown era, how did that inspire you, and what did you draw from it?
I think Motown music has a lot of, perhaps to put it in one word, it would be soul. They have is an amazing connection to the heart and to the soul. And so I've listened a lot of Motown music, and doing this Marvin Gaye cover, Mercy, Mercy Me, was for me a huge challenge, since the musical progressions and scales are very different than normally the progressions and the scales I use. So it was a huge challenge for me to do an interpretation, a down-tempo interpretation of a soul song, which is kind of weird because soul songs are always with this tempo and vibe, which I really try to respect and to lay down on my version of the song.
And as a creative, when it comes to music and being an architect, when you are creating your passion, whether it's visually or sound, what is that process like for you? What are some of the things that you do to put yourself in your zone when you're creating?
I think all of my hobbies are part of taking me into the zone. I like to run a lot on the mornings in the forest, like to be really connected with nature, to see the sunrises. I like to visit museums and lots of art, also movies, photograph. I also cook. Marathon trainings help me also to get like physical shape, to be in the zone mentally, and also meditation helps me a lot. Daily meditation helps me like to get inspired and also to slow down. Perhaps would be another like good factor to get into the zone. We're always in a rush, and right now with the pandemic, this slowdown, it was like, okay, let's start slowing the pace, and by slowing the pace, you can get more creative. So it was a really interesting exercise.
And looking at your Spotify, you have all your songs and music out on there that people can add on the playlist, because that's like the hottest topic right now in this year. What is it like marketing yourself? What are some of the things that you can share with other creatives out there who listen to this episode? What's some of the tips that you have been able to develop putting yourself out there so people can hear your music?
Probably to collaborate with people that help you get your music heard. I think as musicians or as creatives, your first struggle or your main objective is to focus on your music and focus on creating music. And normally we do want to do all by ourselves. And there are a lot of people and collaborating options to help you like spread your music and get your music listened on different countries or venues. So probably the collaboration process, it's very huge in getting to expand your audience.
And also,
rather than thinking all by yourself.
Yeah, and speaking of, of thinking, because it is a thought process, making your next move and strategizing who you're going to trust to push your work that you just work so hard with. What are some of the experiences that you learned from as far as picking the right person, the right company, the right service to grow your new listeners?
I think the main, in my case, is probably to try different services. Sometimes you get the idea that one person will save the world and get all your music in different places and more exposure. And I think it's to try to expand and try with different. I've worked so far in the last 2 years with different options, and some services are better for getting your music on playlist, or some services are better for getting you on radio. So I think it's to stay open and to try and connect with different options, and I think for every profile as a musician, you can have a different option according to what you need.
I like what you said about being open, because I think that's key to not just that, but just everyday living. You got to allow yourself to be open for new opportunities and trying new things, because you never know that different perspective, right, can show you a different angle of something that you never really saw before, because you're so used to looking at it from a routine type of way.
No, I agree with you totally about being open in life and for all things to come. Probably one of my latest albums was a coincidence, and the studio I designed was being open, and I went to a friend at that time. He wasn't a friend, but he wanted me to go to his studio, and after that we talked about, and I designed his studio, which is really nice, a nice place here in Mexico City. And right now, at that time I was an architect, and he was my client, and right now I'm recording my new album on this chapel studio, and he's a producer and now I'm the musician. So it's this openness. Otherwise, this wouldn't have happened if I wouldn't be open. So I think it's really important to stay open for every opportunity, collaboration, and in all things in life come good when you're open.
And once again, you've been listening to I Am Refocused Radio, talking to Chris Koehn. And go follow him on Instagram, man. That's Chris_Koehn.music. And that is KOEHN.music. And what I was going to say too earlier, because you kind of dove into what I was just going to actually say, so it's perfect what you just said moments ago. I was going to say, what you say for artists out there who are in the growth stage? They've been creative, they're good on the creativity, they're not beginners, but they're new to the whole collaborating with other people and marketing themselves in different ways. What do you say to those artists who are really focused on the growth stage now? What do you recommend to them in general terms?
One thing would be, again, to stay open to opportunities and to collaborations, and to see which services work best. As a second thing would be to collaborate. Collaboration always opens the door. Right now I'm collaborating with some drummers, guitarists, and who are really known here in Mexico. So probably my next album is going to take to another level with those collaborations. And also to believe in yourself. I think we all have different ways to express our passions and to do the creative things with love. That's another thing really important. To all that you do it with love, and I know it sounds as a cliche, but I think the main focus has to be to do the things you really love with love, and to believe in yourself, because if you don't believe in yourself, nobody else will.
That is so true. I like what you said. Believe in yourself. Do it with love. Those are two things. If you can hold on to those two things in life, I believe you can go very far.
Exactly.
When you are seeing the success that you obtain, I mean, you're not just into architecture as a successful career, but you're also in the music industry. You got music and Netflix, and you're still growing artist. Looking back to where you started to where you are now today, what's something that you can take away that you appreciate the most outside of going through the process of growing?
What would I take away?
As far as reflecting back, what was something that you learned the most, that you cherish the most as far as going through the process?
Probably believing in yourself. There's always, well, at least in my case, I've always been very, very fond of music, and it was like a strange, invisible force that was stopping me to dive into my passion and to connect and create. And I think this happens a lot in life. You get expectations from your family, or you have bills to pay, or many different reasons, or your friends tell you your music sucks, and you probably slow down. So this invisible force that stops you, I think it's also a trigger, like a fire that can create, and I think that would be my lessons learned, that don't stop believing in yourself no matter what.
And once again, talking to Chris Koehn, and that's right here on I Am Refocused Radio, all about his life story and the music process and being an architect, doing architecture. Before we let you go, let's talk one more time to that creative mind person. Maybe it's not music, maybe it's architecture, maybe it's a different career path, maybe whatever. But I think most of people, we have a universal type option when it comes to life. We either choose to get better or we remain the same. What do you say to individuals out there who are trying their hardest to get to their goals, but they might be in the stage of just, struggles and different seasons of learning stages? What do you say to them to keep them motivated to never stop?
Probably the key is to enjoy the process. You can set goals for yourselves, and you can have a lot of passions. Which also sometimes we're told as kids, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And perhaps we have a lot of passions, and we don't have to be only one thing. We can be architects, musicians, and marathon runners at the same time. And I think the thing is to enjoy the process, because that process will unfold out of the love we are giving it into the process, and there's gonna be struggles, and there's gonna be a lot of forces against us, but by enjoying the process, I think the energy or our mission in life will come out eventually when you're constant, discipline, and not, but also like surrendering into what will come, and surrendering into the unknown.
Well, once again, listen to I Am Refocused Radio. We've been hearing the story, the life story, and amazing career of Chris Koehn. Go follow him on Instagram right now. That's Chris_Koehn.music, and Koehn is spelled Koehn. And also, man, check him out on Spotify. Check out the soundtrack of the Netflix thing we were talking about earlier in the show, Control Z. He has a song on there. And follow him everywhere, man. Follow what he's doing. Check out his playlist on Spotify and also all his projects. Do you have any breaking news or new projects that you can talk about, or anything in the near future?
Well, I'll be releasing my next single from this Live From Home album on next Friday, June 4th. It's called Set, as a book from the Set material. And it's going to be really nice, and to stay tuned to my Spotify and channel, because I'll be releasing like 4 or 5 singles this year. So it's going to be really nice, and music videos. And so to keep up, it's going to be a nice creative year.
Well, there you have it, the one and only Chris Koehn. I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to talk to I Am Refocused Radio. And for the audience, like we say on every single show, keep God first, stay focused, and peace.